Welcome to Behind the Build. I'm your host, Jonathan Jacobs. And today I have with me a couple, not the first couple that I've had on here, that has been working together, both professionally and also on a personal side of things. They are recent contributors to an Impossible Toronto initiative, a book that is now available for purchase, and you'll be able to find that in the liner notes. So please make sure you do check that. Today I have with me Aleris Rodgers and Francesco Valente-Gorjup, Studio VAARO.
Thanks for having us.
It's great to be here.
Now, I got all that correct at the beginning there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Sounded good.
Later in this episode, you'll hear Aleris and Francesco describe one of my favorite design moments in one of their projects. The way a primary ensuite and powder room intersect. A shared wall becomes a sculptural element, hiding a recessed sink on one side and defining the vanity on the other. It's a detail that looks effortless, but it only works because of the precision, the measurements, the intersection that's thought through. The same level of intention is what makes working with Kaplan's appliances such a seamless part of our process, in the overall process for you as an architect, designer, or homeowner. When you're designing spaces where architecture and millwork flow together, appliances don't feel like add-ons. They have to disappear into the design. Kaplan's helps make that possible. The reps work directly with our millworkers and stone fabricators, supplying every spec, from hinge clearances to ventilation requirements, so a fridge or dishwasher integrates perfectly behind the cabinetry. Even a surface-mounted cooktop can sit flush within the counter because the stone fabricator and Kaplan's team have already coordinated every tolerance. In high design, beauty comes from what you don't notice, the quiet alignment between form and function. That's what Kaplan's understands, when every appliance fits as naturally as that recessed wall in the ensuite. The design speaks for itself. If you want to learn more and get connected with Kaplan's, please feel free to email me. It's Jonathan, Jonathan, @waldenhomes.ca, and I'm happy to connect you. But for now, let's go back to Aleris and Francesco. So with all that said, I was introduced to you by Gabriel Fain, also contributor to the book, and you and I connected and said let's get you in here. Let's talk about you and your practice and the evolution of you as professionals. And so, like everyone else, I have a lot of questions I want to ask, none of which you can see, that are all in my mind. So, starting out with the basics of like how you got started. What did it look like for you as children growing up?
Going way back.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right.
I want you to draw on some memories here that
Sounds
you might
good.
not have thought about for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll start off with you, Aleris.
Oh, me first? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I took the roundabout way into architecture.
Yeah.
And actually, so not going as far back as childhood, but maybe college.
No, go back before that.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
like,
My
were you
earliest
playing-
memories.
Yeah, do you remember like you were playing with like Meccano or Lego?
I
or,
was actually, yeah.
Okay.
I had a lot of Lego. I think my dad bought me a ton of Lego. I think a lot of it was for him as much as for me.
Okay.
But enjoyed that. Enjoyed drawing quite a bit. It was very creative and artistic as a child.
Where did this happen? Where
I was actually born and raised in San Francisco.
Okay.
And then when I was about 6, my family moved to Maryland,
Okay.
so the other coast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was born in the U.S. and
Okay.
I've only become Canadian in recent years since living here. So yeah, creative kid, but then went into more like sciences academically. I thought I'd end up being an engineer, actually.
Okay.
That's what I had in mind was applying for college, and then got to college and realized it just wasn't for me. All my electives would have been eaten up by math, and
Okay.
I enjoy some math, but maybe not that much. So
Fair. I
yeah,
have a question for you about your
Sure.
Lego.
yeah,
Going back to that.
yeah,
for a
yeah, yeah.
moment. Were you the kind of person that played with Lego and it was all organized? Or was it in a bin and you would pull out the pieces that you wanted, or did you follow instructions, or were you creating your own?
Maybe a bit of both. I can imagine that it was probably pretty organized, though, just
Okay.
knowing the kind of person I am.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah, that's a good question for Francesco too. Actually,
I have a Lego story.
yeah, he has a good Lego story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you realized that engineering wasn't for you.
Yeah.
And so what did that look like? How
ended up
far
just kind
into
of
school were you at that point?
It was still the first year. So early on, I was just kind of taking courses and fell into psychology. Just really enjoyed it. And I figured no matter what I wanted to do later in life, good to understand people.
Yeah.
So did social psychology.
Okay.
But I was also on the side extracurricularly doing quite a bit of graphic design and ended up wanting to combine my interest in psychology and design professionally, and was thinking maybe product design.
Okay.
Just started researching grad programs in design and found that architecture programs actually welcome students without a background in architecture, and worked in some small architecture firms to get a feel for it.
During school?
This is now after graduating. Yeah.
Oh, graduate. Okay.
Found I liked it.
Wait, so where did you go?
For undergrad?
Yeah.
So undergrad, I went to Harvard.
Yeah.
And then grad, ended up applying at a couple schools in the States and went to UCLA.
Okay. And this is my lack of knowledge. What were graduating class sizes like if you did your architecture degree at UCLA?
Yeah, I think there were 60 students in our class.
Okay,
yeah.
So it's really small.
Yeah. It's a nice intimate scale for the program.
And do you still keep in touch with any of the other graduates?
Yeah, we do actually. And Francesco just had drinks with one who flew in from Amsterdam a couple nights ago.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. They're kind of all over the world. Obviously, a lot still in LA, but doing some interesting things.
And so what was it like? We're going to get to you soon, Francesco. Don't worry.
No worries.
But questions like going through your undergrad program, was it a 4-year program that you finished?
Yes. Yeah.
And what did you do in summers? What did those look like?
Oh, okay. Yeah. One summer I worked in a lab
Okay.
at the National Institutes of Health in Maryland, which is where my parents worked.
Yeah.
And that's how I discovered science was not for me. The lab life where you're kind of by yourself all day in a windowless room. I wanted to deal with people and have every day. Yeah, exactly. Natural daylight. Yeah. I wanted every day to look different, which is what I feel we've achieved in architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one summer. Another summer, I just traveled. That was great.
In the US, or did you go
in Europe? I went to Europe for a summer.
So what did you see?
See a lot of Italy.
Okay.
Started in London, Italy. I just had friends working abroad for the summer and just wanted to take some time off. And, it was a real privilege to get to do that. So,
were there any standout moments you had where you walked up to something like did you go to Rome? Did you go to Colosseum?
Oh yeah. We rented an apartment with some friends that was within a block of the Colosseum.
Okay. And
Simon and Garfunkel actually came to town they put on a free show. They were there singing in front of the Colosseum.
Simon and Garfunkel put on a free show while you happened to be renting.
Yes, it was amazing. And everyone was there like clutching their chests and eyes closed, like singing along. I couldn't believe it. All these Italians were really into it. So
your friend's name wasn't Cecilia, was it?
No.
Okay.
Would have been good.
Right. Okay. And what about like a standout meal from potentially one of the times during that summer? Was there like a location that you had?
I went to Siena by myself just for a side trip for 1 or 2 nights at one point, and just had a great meal there. I can't even recall exactly what I ate, but I also recall a lot of people just giving me funny looks because at the time, at least, it was pretty unusual to eat by yourself as a woman in Italy. So
it still is.
Yeah, I guess it still is. They were like, "What is her deal?"
Yeah, what is she like?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you fast forward, you go to UCLA.
Yeah.
Did I assume this is where you met?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rest is history.
Okay, so we'll pause there with you. Let's go over you. What led you to UCLA?
Yeah, so both my parents are very into architecture. Okay. Especially my father, I think, would have probably wanted to be an architect and different life.
Okay. What did he do?
He was a professor of literature,
Canadian
and post-colonial literature at the university level. My mother was a diplomat, and so she was involved in promoting Italian culture abroad. So Toronto, LA, Chicago, some of the posts where she was, and some of the cities where I ended up living as well. And so my father, I think from a very young age, kind of instilled this curiosity for architecture, and we would travel to Europe every summer to see family, and I would be sketching, the Pantheon or, different buildings. Still have some of these doodles at home. Kind of funny to look back on them, the hand of a child.
You have them still. This is my request.
Yeah, I do have one actually that is framed. It's of the Pantheon.
Take a picture of it.
I'll send it to you.
Send it in.
Sure.
And you'll, over the course of this week, while this is out, you could check our stories and we'll put that picture up.
I'll see if we'll put it out there for opinion.
No, I'll turn off comments.
So this was clearly something that that I had a kind of a curiosity of a child, childlike curiosity, because you don't fully understand, I think, the built environment in an intellectual sense. As a child, you feel it. It's more of a sensation. But the kind of, drawing attention and pausing and to look at it, which is kind of what my father specifically would ask of me, is something that starts raising questions like, why is this important? Why is it? And you start noticing things, you start asking other questions. So anyway, fast forward, I kind of had this sense of being interested in architecture from early on. And I think what really kind of consolidated, I did this job shadowing in high school. I think I was 12. And so I job shadowed a very good family friend who was an architect, Bruce Kuwabara. And I followed him for an entire day.
A friend of Bruce?
No, Bruce.
It was Bruce?
Yeah, Bruce. He was a very close family friend who...
Hold on a second. How? This is where?
So in Toronto.
Oh, this is
Toronto. I grew up in Toronto. I was also born in San Francisco, actually in the same hospital as Aleris.
Come on.
Yeah, but my mother was based in San Francisco as the director of the Italian Cultural Institute there, and then was relocated to Toronto. And when I was, a couple weeks old, basically. So I didn't grow up there. I was just born there. And she came to Toronto to run the Italian Cultural Institute in Toronto, which is on Huron Street. And early on, she discovered this youngish architect, Bruce. He wasn't crazy young at the time, but he was, maybe our age, actually, or a little bit older.
So very young,
actually. And he was brought on to, she asked him if he would help do the exhibition design for various shows. One was of Bugatti furniture. There had never been a show like this before. And so Bruce came in and started doing the exhibition design. That one was particularly stunning, where he put this Bugatti furniture that looked very exotic on a plinth with white sand that I still remember. He, with a blow dryer, was sculpting the sand into kind of dunes and then placing the furniture on there. So we lived on the third floor. That was a perk of the director, is you got the apartment on the third floor. So as a child, I would have been about 6. I was, I kind of acted like I owned the place, and I would go downstairs, especially when they were setting up these exhibits, to poke around. And so I got to know Bruce like that from very early age. So anyway, he agreed to let me tag along at 12, and I was completely taken. And he obviously gave me a bit kind of like the best possible view into the profession. But I remember, we started off at his office, which is impressive. It was at John Street, King and John, this beautiful kind of loft building owned by David Mervish. And started off in the office, discussion. Maybe there was a meeting, then we went to have lunch, then we went to a site visit, then we went, it was just a day full of, wonders, it felt so diverse and magical. And so I was like, wow, this is what an architect does. This is great. Sign me up. Little did I know that that's not always the case, but it was a nice intro. It was a nice intro to the profession.
Later in the episode, you'll hear how careful detailing shapes experience, from exhibitions that framed objects with light to projects where space unfolds with intention. The same sensitivity applies at home. Natural light is not just illumination, it sets the mood of a room and the rhythm of a day. It is why the right doors and glazing matter so much. We work with the doors, a window and door supplier, because they help us treat openings like gallery lenses. Whether you need large sliders that pull daylight deep into a plan or a quiet set of French doors that frame a garden view, they deliver the performance and the craft to make it work. They handle the full spectrum of materials: fiberglass, vinyl, steel, aluminum wood-clad, and all wood, standard colors or custom matches, double pane or triple pane. They meet stringent requirements, including passive house assemblies, so comfort and efficiency are part of the design from day one. What makes it seamless is coordination. Their team provides precise specification and works directly with our site team, so clearances, anchoring, flashings are all resolved before installation. They also bring serious capability on site. Their new spider crane can lift units up to 75 feet up and over a home, which often removes the need for separate equipment rentals and keeps the schedule tight. The doors installs with their own crews across Canada and in parts of the US, which means one accountable partner from selection to set. If you want to learn more or need a warm intro, email me. It's Jonathan, Jonathan, at waldenhomes.ca, and I'm happy to make the introduction. For now, let's go back to Francesco and Aleris.
And so, yeah, from 12, I basically knew that I was going to be an architect around 12. Okay. And so I did my undergrad at U of T in English literature and architecture. I wanted to pursue both. I was genuinely curious, and the kind of intellectual side and reading and stuff like that sort of stuff. Yeah. Anyway, but met Gabriel at an undergrad.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's we go way back to when we were 19 years old. That's when we met.
Just after he and I parted ways.
Not so far after that. Yeah. And then I took a year off to live in LA because my mother had been posted in LA by the time, and I wanted to explore that option, work for Johnston Mark Lee there, and then joined UCLA and met Aleris.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
Magical, no.
I just finished describing it. I was like getting my what?
It was love at first sight.
Was it? Yeah.
I mean, it took us a couple months maybe, but yeah.
We were sitting opposite each other in studio.
Yeah, we were in the same studio first semester.
And it's an intimate environment. You get to know people.
Kids.
Yeah. I had a Vespa. She was curious about that.
Yeah.
And so took her for a ride, and rest is history.
Okay. So tell me, you both graduated from the UCLA program, and I don't know this, so I'll just ask. Did they also have a co-op program like some of the other schools?
No, they did not. No,
Okay.
It was a 3-year program, and
most students worked in the summers, but unfortunately, a co-op placement would have been really nice. I think is a way of getting work experience while you're in school. But
so we would work in the summers,
just throw your resume out to a few different places. See what took.
Yeah, I worked for Renzo Piano one summer in Geneva. So I went to Geneva. Aleris worked for
Spam and also Johnston
Mark Lee.
Summer.
Okay. While I was in my undergrad, also I worked for KPMB every summer. So I'd been in that office for a long time. So
holding on to the bargain.
When I came back, all those years, it's kind of surreal to actually be back there as an adult.
Having seen the evolution of that practice also, because when you at 6, the practice would have been relatively new.
Yeah, at 6, I didn't even know what architecture was, but by 12, I had a better sense.
Right.
Yeah, and they were working on some very big projects that are now legacy projects, right? And
And so, but then you ended up going and working at another practice. Was it together?
Yeah.
After
grad school.
Yeah.
So Aleris actually wanted to.
Yeah, so through our parents, we're actually both European citizens. Yeah. I'm Belgian, Francesco's Italian, and Croatian. And so I thought we graduated basically into the kind of recession, the 2008 recession in the States. It was a few years after that now, but they were still feeling the effects, and thought, okay, we're young. This is a good time to kind of work in Europe, where at least in parts of Europe, the economy was much better.
Yeah.
And Francesco said, okay, sounds good, but the only way I would move to Europe is if I get a job at Herzog de Meuron.
And to provide a bit of context, I had lived in Europe already, so it wasn't something that I was,
You're from a bit to go back.
I'd kind of done it, and so, but I was open, I guess, to entertain the idea,
Yeah.
but with a very
very
what I thought was
particular constraint.
impossible.
Yeah.
What size font was that constraint?
Yeah. Well, I set the
So
bar.
at the time, we thought it was unlikely, but who knows? So he applied there. I applied to some other smaller practices in Basel, Switzerland, and it just so happened that we were traveling in Europe that summer, and we both managed to get interviews lined up with these respective practices, and then both ended up getting jobs there, which was
And how
amazing.
many other people at the time were brought in as new staff
Into these offices?
into the office that you got the job at Herzog de Meuron?
Well, Herzog de Meuron is a large office, so they
Yeah.
were always looking for students, but they hire mainly European students. Yeah. A lot of that is like a visa issue, So as Aleris mentioned, because we have EU passports, it made it much easier.
And I think the office was about 300 something people when Francesco joined, and I joined a much smaller office in Basel, and I think there were about maybe a dozen or less of us when I first joined.
Did you remember? I mean, obviously you're going to, so that's a silly way to start the question. What were some of the projects that you were working on at the time? What did they look like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure. I worked on a wide range of projects in a smaller practice. There were some pavilions and a lookout point in a park in France.
Okay.
So actually my first week on the job, I was sent to France to work on this, kind of manage this project.
Did you call your parents and be like, I'm already traveling?
I know. It was wild. My first week, I actually spent more time in this French office than in the office I was working for in Switzerland. So it was a bit of an odd first week. I also worked on some housing competitions within Europe, master plan competitions, competition for an oceanium, which is essentially a large aquarium for Basel. So yeah, quite a range of projects there.
Question on the aquarium project. Are you designing the space that
the fish will occupy?
The creatures will occupy?
No, we actually worked with an aquarium specialist who worked as a consultant.
Is there an aquarium architect? Is that a
specialist?
Oh yeah, specialist. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's fields of pretty much any consultant you could wish for in architecture. There's someone who specializes in that. Yes.
And are there many practices that fulfill that type of requirement? I feel like it's a pretty niche thing.
Yeah, not too many.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to digress.
No problem.
Yes. Okay.
And I ended up working there for 2 years, and then I actually joined Francesco at Herzog de Meuron after. But maybe I'll let him speak also to his experience at.
Yeah, I worked kind of right off the bat on very large projects there, on large teams. So the first one was in Brazil. It was for a cultural complex in Sao Paulo, which never got built, unfortunately, but it was really, it had 3 concert halls at different scales, like a very intimate one, a larger one, and a medium, like black box type thing. Indoor.
Okay.
Connected by what looked like kind of infrastructural, almost like overpasses. So imagine long strips that were crisscrossed at different levels with lodged between them these objects that were these concert halls, and then all the negative spaces filled with plants and vegetation. So very open air, taking advantage of that climate and the site. And so by the end we were a team of 48 people. So for me it was really like that for me was that was architecture, which you kind of end up also being shaped by your environment. And it's only maybe later that you step into a different environment that you realize like, wow, that was, actually a massive team, massive undertaking, but it seems so normal when you're in it,
how would they have divided the team up to? by topics or by disciplines. So there was a team just doing the concert halls, a team doing structural coordination and drainage. And then there was a team doing envelope, which is what I quickly joined and then pursued basically 6 years of becoming a bit of like a facade expert in the office.
and going to different projects to develop the envelope design, which happens to be their specialty also. So it's very nice to have fallen into that kind of specialty within that office. And I learned a lot, of course, and really it's exposed the kind of process and rigor and curiosity of really trying to reimagine what envelopes can be and how they perform and how they look, and very rigorous undertaking of prototyping, dealing with manufacturers, and everything being custom.
So were you often on trips that were where you'd arrive to a manufacturing facility?
Later on, yes, later on when we moved to Hong Kong, was actively involved in going to ceramic factories, glass factories.
And the same?
No, I was focused on different parts of the project eventually, so I did not travel for work, but that's fine.
not later in the stage of the early part of your career.
At the early part, you traveled a lot.
At the early part, weekend, you were already traveling.
Yes, that's true.
Once you got established within the practice. So what did it look like for you? What was your focus?
So after leaving the small firm I was at first, so I joined Francesco, and actually they placed me on the same project as him, which after working on a few different projects, he was placed on this museum called M+, which is a kind of multimedia museum currently located in Hong Kong. And so I joined the same team, and actually 6 months after joining, they asked us if we wanted to relocate to Hong Kong to work on that project there in the sort of later stages of design and during construction. So I guess that would be considered travel, I suppose, for work. Yes, in a big way. Yeah.
Can I ask, were you married at this point?
We were not.
We were not, but we'd already been together for, I don't know, 6-7 years at that point.
Yeah. I just wanted,
Yeah.
So you have this little conversation between the two of you after work, and you're debating yes or no.
I mean, it was pretty much yes.
We were we were ready to leave Switzerland, so we were going to leave the office, and then this offer came, and to stay with the office but in a different location. But also, it's a big privilege within that specific office to actually build a building. Huge amount of the people working in the office are supporting, doing the design, and then a relatively small component actually go and build the buildings. They obviously often work with local partners, and building a building is the greatest learning experience. So not to mention a museum of this scale and complexity. So we couldn't say no. We jumped on the opportunity.
I mean, this is like one of those career moments. I think everyone I've spoken to in some capacity, if they have not yet, dreams of being able to be a part of the museum.
Yeah. So we were there, we built it. We left before, unfortunately, it was completed, but that was due to many factors. And
question about this experience prior to leaving. So how many years was that project in development before construction started?
It was
4 or 5.
It was one through competition.
Okay.
I was not on the competition team. And then I think a year and a half after winning the competition, it started in the office in Basel.
Okay.
For about a year and a half, I think. So I'd been on it for a year, then Aleris joined for 6 months, and then it was very fast. Actually, the design process
my timeline is off. Maybe it was like
very
3
fast.
Years design, and then
and the construction
5 or 6 years of construction.
A long time, and it opened a few years ago.
It opened, unfortunately, during COVID.
Yeah.
Oh wow! And so it's empty pretty much for the first little while.
And I think
locals still
were
went,
going, but none of the team who had worked on the project from abroad was able to attend the
opening.
A
2-week quarantine.
Yeah, at the time you would have to stay in a quarantine hotel for 2 weeks, so we didn't go. And now we have kids, and so who knows when we'll be back to Hong Kong.
We've never
We've
seen
never,
it
no.
like we saw it under construction, but never actually completed.
We've seen plenty of photos, but
If
never been
anyone's
back.
out there listening to this right now, okay, and you feel in some way, shape, or form the opportunity to provide some funding that would allow for perhaps some babysitting for a little while, or maybe travel babysitting to send these lovely people back to the project that they were a part of.
It will happen.
You can reach out.
It will happen one day, I'm sure.
Much appreciated.
It's definitely built to last, that building. So
yeah,
I'm not so worried. Yeah, so we were there for 3 years, and then we decided to come back to Toronto. And that's where, I would say our new path kind of started.
And at this whole time, your parents were still living here?
Yes, my parents were living here.
And your parents?
My parents are both in the States.
They're both in the States. Were they still in Maryland?
Opposite coast, one in California and one in Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah, so part of the decision was to come to be closer to our families.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
And to start a family and to start a practice. That was always been our ambition, and we'd been discussing it for years and years and years, and at some point we had to make an active decision, and so coming back was very strategic. It was about choosing a location where we wanted to be. It was about starting a process of getting licensed and so forth, because even though we were logging hours, you have to at some point commit to a certain location. And then regaining context. I'd been gone for a decade since growing up in Toronto. Aleris never grew up in Toronto. She kind of took a jump,
Yeah, I never lived here. I visited, but never lived here before.
So I just want to understand. I mean, I've never lived anywhere other than Toronto, so I'm somewhat sheltered to it, to the rest of what the world is. But understanding the timeline. So you left Toronto when? Was it mid-2000?
Well, I left. So I grew up in Toronto. Then I went to Rome. I did 2 years of high school in Rome. Okay. Then to Chicago. Yeah, so 2 years in Chicago. So 11 and 12. That was also an architectural, kind of great place to be. Yeah. Frank Lloyd Wright, Sullivan. And then came back to Toronto undergrad. Okay. Then went to LA.
So do you remember what year it was that you went to LA?
Yeah, it was 2007.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were gone from 2007 pretty much until almost 2017.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 10 years.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of what when I drive through the city, I'm thinking what changed in that time frame.
A lot changed.
And there was a lot.
A lot changed. Yeah, I'd been coming back and visiting. Yeah.
That was the core years of our construction group.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had at one point, I know that the only other city that had more cranes than us, I think, was Dubai.
Yeah. I think we had a number one spot for several years.
We might have held number one
in North America. Yeah.
So then, for anyone listening, there's just some factual information on Toronto at one point. We're no longer number one.
No, I doubt it. Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2017, you return to what in some capacity at home.
Yeah. So Bruce kindly accepts my. I went to him looking for a job. He took me in. Aleris, we had discussions about how we wanted to manage this, and we wanted one person to really focus on the business right away. Yeah. And somebody had to get licensed in Ontario. And so because I had started that process already many years ago and I had accumulated, it made sense that I would carry that through. And so I kind of took a job with KPMG, which I was very happy about, and had an exceptional couple of years there, 4 years, learned a ton, contributed to some great projects, built some projects, and got licensed during that time. In the meantime, Aleris has been...
Yeah, I was doing a number of things. I was also working on licensure. So I had started logging hours towards licensure in the States, just because that's where I'd been from. And at the time, had no idea that I'd eventually end up in Canada. So that's where I completed my licensure. So I'm actually licensed in New York State. And so I was doing that. I was also teaching. So I started teaching as a sectional lecturer at Daniels and also at what is now TMU. Yep. before eventually just focusing solely on Daniels. And that's where I now teach as a assistant professor in the teaching stream there. And I also essentially started the practice, but it was a very slow launch, I would say, at the time, because neither of us was licensed. We were really working on international competitions and kind of small conceptual projects.
Like what? So what were some of those international competitions? What do they look like?
Yeah, one was a museum in Korea.
Yeah.
One was in Norway.
Yeah, one was for a small like event space, a couple event spaces, one outside Chicago, one in Vancouver, even, I think.
Yeah.
And were you working on these just yourselves?
Yeah.
Mostly the two of us. Sometimes
mainly Aleris, and then I would support as I could.
Yeah.
Mainly on weekends.
Sometimes we'd collaborate, and we still like to collaborate actually with our friends who have their own architecture practices. So that's a model we've kind of stuck with from the beginning. Yeah. And
so was it in 2017 that you started Studio VAARO?
Not officially.
Okay. Like I said, I feel like we had a slow launch. I had started doing some work under that name, but not, let's say, it was mostly architectural competitions, as I was saying. And then it wasn't until a number of years later that we really started doing proper work in Canada. And at that point in 2022, Francesco left KPMB and joined me full time at the practice. And so that's sort of when we officially feel Studio VAARO as it is today was founded.
And so what is the definition of VAARO?
It's a secret. No, it's Valente and Rodgers. So it's kind of the first two letters of our last names, but it's reconfigured to sound a bit abstract. And,
it was abstract enough that I didn't know.
Yeah.
But it has meaning, but it's a bit abstract. And I think there's always a big discussion in architecture what you name yourself, and I don't know if anybody's ever happy really with their name, but at some point you kind of grow into you just have to commit and grow into it.
Well, and also I think that and I've spoken to a number of practices that have put their full names into the practice, and then as they get to the point where they look into succession, then they have to rename the practice and go through a full marketing campaign. Rebranding yourself.
Exactly.
So
we're not quite to the point where we're thinking about succession yet,
but you are succession proof.
But we did want something that I guess was representative more of like a ethos and an idea rather than being associated immediately with the name of a founder. I mean, obviously there's great examples on both sides, and I think at some point it's what you make of it, and the work. It's really at the end of the day the work that counts. The name, follows the quality of the work.
Right. So what did it look like when you left? What were some of these inception projects looking like? Because instead of being competitions, in order to be viable, you obviously have to have something. So
there were a few small residential projects that started coming online, and that because of the approach we take, were just too much work for one person, really, because of just take a holistic approach, look at everything. We do the interiors as well, and it's just a lot of work. And
were these renovation projects or
reno, new build? One was kind of started as a reno, ended up being a new build. But I would say overall they were either like extensive renovations, like full gut renos with underpinning and roof rebuilds, or new build kind of style. So they were not that small, actually. We were very lucky to actually start like that, because often you start with just doing like a kitchen or a bathroom or a room. I mean, we did our own kitchen, but I don't think that counts. So this was actually a really big learning experience for us, because we came from working on very large projects, teams of 40 plus, many museums, cultural projects, towers, residential towers at KPMB, also
non-emotional decision makers.
Different.
Which completely is different in residential.
It is. It is. Yeah.
So how did you win these projects? How did they come to you? How did they know who you were?
Yeah, I mean,
connections.
yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And that's why it took a while, because we
long
didn't
time.
really know that many people when we first moved here. So it took us a few years to really build up a network of people who knew and trusted us.
So I would say our first project is kind of a nice story, maybe. Like our very first project was we met, we became friends with a couple, and the lady's brother and his partner had this cute little bungalow, and they wanted to redo it. And so we met with them like really early on when we moved back to Toronto, maybe a couple of years in.
Okay.
Gave a proposal, and then it was kind of like, thank you, but no thank you. And that was fine. And then a couple of years later, they came back saying, we're desperate. We work with this other architect who they went for instead of us.
Can I ask, was it perhaps that other architect was charging less?
I don't even know. I mean, at this point, I don't
have
even
to assume so.
I imagine. I don't even remember what our fee was, but it was probably pretty competitive at the time because we were just starting
You're
out.
trying to get business, I get it, but
But it was anyway, and they came back and they said, they designed this thing and we're not happy at all with it, and we got the approvals, so they got C of A approval for it, and they said, can you help us? And I said, oh, okay, well, we were obviously a bit taken aback by this request,
of course,
but we were also ready to take the challenge. And it turned out to be an extremely, I would say, educational moment. I think especially for me, I was very taken aback, as I mentioned, about this coming in and modifying somebody else's work, first of all. Yeah. And then there's obviously a bit of ego involved, didn't use us and now you want us to fix it. Well, so put all that aside, I think is the lesson there, because you never know what great opportunity can emerge from something. And that's what I would tell my younger self. And I'm glad we did it. We kind of did. I think a lot of it was also just Aleris's influence. And I think that's why also being two and working as a team is extremely beneficial, to have often a kind of counterpoint to maybe your initial instinct to question, to really consolidate. So long story short, we wanted to do it professionally. We reached out to that architect. We actually reached out to the OAA also, informed them about that. He was totally fine. He had no issue. And then we went back to them and said, we're happy to help you, but we didn't know what this was going to look like.
Hold on. Sorry, I'm cutting you off. I can't think of a scenario where I've heard of a story like that, where you are presented with the opportunity and then with the level of integrity to go and speak to the other practice and open up potentially a can of worms with the OAA.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was really, maybe it was being kind of young and naive, but maybe it was driven by fear. I don't know. I mean, it's also, you want to do it properly. And that's what we learned also working in all the offices we worked. That if you're going to do something, you have to do it properly.
With a level of integrity.
Yeah.
I think if the situation were reversed, we would expect someone to come to us.
Yeah, you would hope so.
Confirm. Yeah, exactly.
But you don't know.
Yeah.
Human condition is
it's a funny thing. Yeah, sure.
And once that was all cleared, we basically started incrementally stripping this project of every single element that we thought was not needed. Right. It was an editing process until the result was somehow what we could do within still these very real constraints, which were an approved envelope and massing that we couldn't modify too much. But it's very pared back, and it became really about a single material brick that was made in Belgium by hand, and it became a very enigmatic form that we think is representative of our practice, even though
your first project was representative of your practice.
We think so in many regards, because
that's really rare.
Yeah, because it we tried to, even working within an existing constraint, there's always existing constraints, whatever they are. In this case, it was an envelope massing.
Envelope.
This other architect having done this. So that's a constraint, that somebody else had basically done the core setup that we wanted to do. We want to always do the massing, obviously. So we weren't able to do that, but we could still shape it, I think, in a way that was meaningful. And I think in that sense, we turned out great and we were happy. And it's unrecognizable from what it was before.
And the clients are quite happy too, which is great. So it was a win-win.
So it goes to show there's never kind of a impossible, setup. If you go in kind of patient, I think patience is the key, and listening, and are willing to do things incrementally, I think the results can be surprising. It's always kind of like a door, So even if you check your ego, to the side and you say, so we always try to listen, that's now, you have to listen and see where the opportunities are and figure out what path you can take to get to the end, that makes everybody kind of happy with the result, because ultimately we're in a service profession.
Yeah.
We want to make the clients happy.
Yep.
On the other hand, we have a responsibility to our own practice and to the profession to do stuff that's meaningful. And that doesn't always necessarily align on day one. So you have a back and forth. It's a discussion, and there's never one solution. Yeah. There's always many solutions.
So I'm curious, Aleris, to know from your perspective, because you were involved in this project at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
You came in.
Yeah, I came in midway.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think because you talk about checking ego, and I feel like one of the hardest things to do is to raise your hand and say, like, I need help potentially. So you're involved in this project, and you're involved in the detailing and what it's going to look like as you try to take it over. What were some of the challenges that you saw in front of you that said, like, I want Francesco to come and join now?
Sure. I think we're quite complementary in our skill set, and I think we found a good way of working together. So I think we can both work independently, but we're stronger together. So what we do now in the practice is I often tend to focus on the kind of earlier phases of work. I deal a lot with kind of the clients and the city as well, permitting. I know, so the fun.
There's the patience.
Exactly.
And the rigor. You have to be very precise.
Yeah, very precise and detail oriented with all the
good communication.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but I still stay. I stay involved in the projects at all phases, but typically Francesco gets more involved, and he's also involved, in the early design stages, but he gets much more involved during construction. He's just really good at kind of problem solving on site, things like that.
For those of you that don't understand that brief point earlier about drawings that are submitted to the city, and the importance of the detailing is that in the city of Toronto, if you happen to make a mistake on your drawings and the city catches it, it's not like you can just go back to the city. Like, sometimes they're going to actually send you back to the beginning, which can have a serious hardship and strain on the client relationship.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get in any interactions with the city. So
you have no idea.
Better just to be prepared. And yeah.
Well, and to be able to foster those relationships with the city.
Yeah, exactly.
Because as you start dealing with zoning staff and examiner or whatever it's going to be, you develop those relationships and they're strong, then you can actually sometimes move things forward a little bit faster. So it's good to know. And so do you feel like because you said it, that first project you felt like was indicative of what you wanted for the practice and the way that it looks, what it represents? Do you ever send new prospective clients to go and look at a previous project like that? Do you say go drive past it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that, that project was a success given the complexities that we outlined.
Yeah.
And I think it allowed us to, every project is an opportunity to test different things.
Yeah.
Right. And many of those things were successful. Now, it didn't, at the time, it didn't meet, let's say, our greater ambitions of doing everything, because there was also a limitation to the budget or the interest of the client. They had done certain things already, or purchased certain things. So we didn't have, let's say, the overall control that we try to have.
Yep.
Some of the bathrooms were done by them and so forth, and that's fine, and so I think that one was really the aspects that we were allowed to touch, we were very happy with.
Okay.
And our next projects after that incrementally became more and more holistic. And our most recent one, which is this Rathnelly House, which we're very proud of, I would say really showcases our philosophy as a practice.
And what is it about that house that you feel encapsulates that so well?
Yeah, I can start. I mean, it's a reno, first of all, so it has the complexity of working within an existing condition.
Yeah.
It was quite complex because of the neighborhood. It's in Rathnelly. The neighborhood definitely cares about the expression of their houses. There was oppositions.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to the committee of adjustment, but the strategy was to have the house appear virtually unchanged from the outside, but completely restructured internally. So the basement had a 4.5-foot underpin. Ground floor was dropped, 10-foot ceilings. Now on the ground floor, 9 on the second, 9 plus on the third. Roof line didn't change. So everything was restructured internally.
I was looking to do what you just talked about in my own house.
Mm-hmm.
I contemplated it. Sorry.
No problem.
Just because when we record this, we try to do as many of these recordings in my house, and because just being in person doing this is important. So to that point, it's really what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and it was a huge effort, huge undertaking to just get the new kind of structure of the house where you wanted it. And then on top of that, we just had
that already ate up quite a bit of the budget.
Yeah,
just the kind of structural gymnastics to get all that done. Yeah,
I wanted to. It's the only thing that I think about in my own house right now. It's like, sorry, I didn't interrupt.
And then the clients just had the kind of trust, but also the kind of curiosity, I would say, to explore, different materials that are maybe not so common. So the whole ground floor is in concrete with these monolithic elements that come out of the floor, like the hearth, the TV console. There's a bench in the kitchen, and the clients shape these projects in unexpected ways, and each project that takes on a kind of quirky or different, atypical nature is generally from client input to some degree. I mean, they didn't want a dining room, so there's no dining room in this house. There's just a booth built into the kitchen. We've had
the washroom. We initially proposed a separate powder room from their primary washroom, and we had placed a kind of more conventional wall-mounted sink in there, and they didn't want any sink protruding into the space, so it had to be kind of flush with the wall.
Recess sink.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we were kind of sitting down and thinking how to give the client what they wanted, and that's how we ended up developing this custom recessed triangular sink in the powder room that's expressed as a triangular column in the primary that kind of splits the vanity in two.
Okay.
And it created a kind of really interesting geometric interlocking configuration between the two spaces where you don't know, when you're in the primary and you see this column, you don't really know why it's there, what it's doing. And that kind of is revealed to you as you go into the powder room. So it's kind of a nice moment that we thought, sort of this kind of odd, fun element that we would not have just proposed on our own, right? It really came through kind of feedback and pushback from the client. So we really enjoy moments like that.
So I guess one of the things I'll say about when I do this is that I will look at a high level through some projects, and I never try to go too deep, because if I go too deep, I don't formulate too many of my own opinions. I like to have this conversation naturally. So can I ask, is this project complete now?
Yes.
It's
complete.
Photograph?
Yes. Photograph. Yeah. It's on our website. Yeah.
So I would recommend, if you're listening to this again, while you might want to venture over to their website, we're going to feature some of the work too. I'm assuming we would probably feature this project.
Sure. Yeah.
So you can check out Instagram and understand what this image will look like.
Correct.
You're currently trying to visualize in your mind. You'll see the actual image of what it looks like.
Yeah.
because it sounds pretty. I'm trying to find the right word for it, and I apologize. I'm a bit of a child, and it sounds pretty kick-ass.
Yeah.
Well, it's
It's a good word.
What was nice is that you take what is a sink and it turns into a really spatial, integral part of the house.
Yeah.
And that's what we always try to do. So we never try to just do a closet or just do a sink or just do an island.
Yeah,
it has to be something that is more than just its initial function.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not worth doing. So that's where this project, I think, really showcases the potential of that, and that we were allowed to do every level of the house. It comes together kind of as a holistic vision concept,
right?
And it's this language of curves and sharp angles together, which appear in the stair and the millwork, and that have this kind of directionality as well as softness.
Yeah, well, it's also guiding you visually, right, through the projects.
Yeah.
How to engage with the space as you're looking between the sharp angle and the soft angle. I'm even thinking about. I know this sounds so silly that I'm kind of hung up as you describe this recessed sink, but when you think about powder rooms in totality, you're generally always in some way moving around the sink.
Yeah.
Or the sink is positioned somewhere so that it's not a part of the pathway, but it's still
on the side.
And they're usually small rooms, so a projecting sink becomes a big obstruction.
Right. So I'm now really keen on wanting to see what this looks like, because it just changes the concept of what that room can be.
Yeah. It does.
And it'll engage with anyone that's going to be a guest of that house in a completely different way.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you are now landing the types of projects that you feel are really in line with what you're looking for, which kind of takes me to the next phase of this conversation, and where we met in person just not long ago. And I say that because based on time frame between when we record and when it comes out, there will be time. So I met you at an event on Friday. Share with us what that event was, and really how special that event is given where you're at in your careers.
Sure. Yeah. So Friday night was a big moment for us. It was the launch of our book that Studio VAARO and Gabriel Fain Architects collaborated on, called Impossible Toronto on the Courtyard.
Yeah, I left that part at the beginning intentionally. So
yes, thank you. Here it is. So as a practice, we'd always wanted to do research. And about a year ago, the opportunity came up. Gabriel approached us. He said he'd heard that the Neptis Foundation was looking for proposals, ideas that would fall under the umbrella of this idea of Impossible Toronto. And so we met with Zoe, heard her out. Zoe is the kind of one of the heads of the Neptis Foundation, and eventually proposed the idea of looking at the courtyard housing typology that is common throughout the world, but we were looking specifically in Europe. Exactly. We happened to live in a courtyard block in Basel when we were there for those 3 years, and it was an apartment and kind of a housing typology that we love, that you don't find in most of North America. So our idea was to kind of study why, and Zoe wanted something with a project with great visuals. So the idea was to design a courtyard block for Toronto and visualize it. And she was on board with the idea. She's been a great supporter of everything we've been doing ever since. So there's about 8 or so months of research and design, and then the work on the book itself, which was quite an undertaking. Block did the design for that. And then now there's also a website. Anyway, so everything came together, and there was a launch for specifically the book, but also the website on Friday evening. And we think we're really happy with both the research and design as well as the book. And we ourselves learned a lot about housing, both globally and also in Toronto. And just all the obstacles that present themselves when you want to do that kind of housing here. So,
I mean, just what I find so interesting about this, as you listen to this, I'm going to again reference the fact that if you look in the liner notes from the show, you'll be able to read the bio about Aleris and Francesco, but at the bottom you'll see that there'll be links. So if you're interested in wanting to get a copy of this book, purchase it, you'll be able to go to that link at the bottom to be able to go and purchase the book. I mean, I can tell you, I was very proud to be able to swipe my credit card on Friday and purchase the book. It's currently inside my living room.
That's fantastic. But you can also actually download the PDF of the book for free, which we're encouraging that.
The printed book is a beautiful object, and if you're willing to purchase it, I don't think you'll be disappointed. But the mandate also of the foundation is to distribute this very democratically, easily for everybody, and so it's a great resource, we think, also for students.
Yes.
And you can download the PDF, which is a kind of exact digital copy of the book on the website as well.
I mean, just given what our field is, we construct at Walden Homes, you design. A lot of what we want to try to do is make things tangible, and I get we don't want to have waste and associated carbon and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But something important like this, I feel like it's important. You buy it, you hold it, you flip those pages, and you take a look at those images. It's different.
It's a resource, we think, and there's a lot of time went into also selecting these references in Europe. These are not random references. They're offices that we respect and think are at the forefront. A mix of different, kind of sizes of offices. There are different points in their career. Some are quite young, some are quite established. But they're all able to do these kind of projects in Europe, where here we're not currently allowed to do them for various reasons outlined in the book. But I think it allows you to be optimistic, ask questions, inform yourself. And ultimately, I think that's how you also affect change, is through bringing a kind of showing a more appealing reality, which is not just pulled out of thin air. It's one that's established, and
it exists in many parts of the world, and it's clearly financially feasible there because it's getting built, right?
Well, it's feasible here too. I mean, it really is. Just the constraints that exist.
And it's just that the North American context is, I would say, almost the largest barrier to this. And you have to understand that Europe is much older and has developed incrementally over time, and it's a population and density question. And in North America, if you think it's not so old and there's an abundance of land, but at the end of the day, we do live in urban centers, and we want to keep them somewhat contained and not just allow them to sprawl everywhere. And so as you're working your way kind of back to the center, there's only so much land available. And the way psychologically we envision a built form on land is obsolete. It's that of the single family house. It's that of the settler's cabin on a piece of land that has 4 stakes and some string. So now you increase the density to, like a 6-plex, and you're still treating it as this cabin on a field with setbacks on all sides, tremendous waste of space, and ultimately, I think, a lack of vision urbanistically of what a great city can be. And so, we often talk amongst ourselves, but, I think definitely like the side yard setback is should be the first
we
thing
love to see go. Yes.
And the case study site, that because it's a very real question that people have concerns about, because we're so used to being in houses with side windows. Although there's few, generally there are.
So what are you looking at?
You're looking at a wall or to somebody else's house, and then many of these houses, especially on the case study site that we selected, have already blank walls, or literally just one right up to the other. So there's no real reason to stick by this antiquated zoning idea.
So instead of having these narrow, deep building configurations, which often lead to narrow and deep apartments, which lead to very little daylighting into the units.
That's where I was going to want to.
Yeah, exactly. Like the all the precedents, the case studies that we were looking at tend to have wider, shallower units. So more daylighting and views either towards the street or towards your courtyard rather than to your side neighbors.
Right.
So ultimately, it's just a different reallocation of space.
Yeah.
It's not that they're necessarily occupying more or less of the kind of footprint on the site, but just using space differently, and we think more efficiently.
Well, and for anyone out there that is potentially listening to this and talks about the idea of how they dislike when new developments go up and they're going to now get shade, and there's so much discussion about shade.
I personally like shade, so
who doesn't?
In the summer, I sort of run. Yeah, I run from one
Celsius.
shady spot to the next.
Right.
So I'm pro shade, I would say.
But in the concept and context of having a courtyard, you still now are bringing the opportunity for light into an area.
Yeah, it's a larger area.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right? You have
It's sort of
your own-
consolidating the green space rather than having it small patches kind of throughout a site
Right.
on front and back. This way it's one large courtyard area, which can also serve as a community amenity.
That's it.
Yeah.
But a big piece of it is also the landscape, which we had Mark Ryan from Public Work
He's great.
generously offer his input and time. And I think what's particularly revealing and what got us all excited was when he started thinking about it as a one large biosystem, one kind of large sponge that can absorb water, that can deal with runoff and heat island and not individual properties. And that becomes the amenity. Becomes the amenity, is the courtyard, being able to have kids, be in a kind of controlled, contained, safe area with trees and nature.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
When a landscape becomes part of the architecture, the water feature needs to feel inherent. That's why we're proud to partner with the Quanta Pools. Their Italian biodesign system brings a natural form, sand-like entries, and clean lines into both residential and commercial settings. Aquanta's custom pools are built to merge with context, from luxury hotel resorts to private homes, and they rely on advanced chemical systems and filtration to maintain clarity and comfort in what appears as a free-form design. Whether the project is a backyard haven or a high-end hospitality installation, the team coordinates finish, form, and performance so the pool doesn't feel like an add-on, but an integral part of the architecture. For more details or to start the conversation with Yuri and his team, email me. It's Jonathan, JONATHAN, at waldenhomes.ca, and I'll be happy to connect you. But for now, let's go back to the conclusion of this discussion with Aleris and Francesco.
And I think that there are examples of this, even in Toronto at like a lower scale, but not at this scale and not so kind of collective.
I look forward to the time when some of the current regulations see some level of reform and change, and
So do we.
And what is deemed currently as impossible becomes possible, and this becomes the catalyst, hopefully, for some of that change, that people can actually start to think that these things are doable.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we see ourselves as like part of, there's a larger conversation going on. It's not like we're the first or the only in any way contributing. Oh, no. I wanted to put that out there. But I think that, when a lot of architects and planners and builders and clients come together and we're all kind of saying the same thing, hopefully that will begin to have an impact.
Yeah. And
we know like already some issues like the single stair is going to hopefully be approved shortly.
I know you're working on that now.
Yeah, and that's part of the Impossible Toronto research.
And I met him that night.
Yeah.
But also the general public, I think that's really key, is to get people excited
and educated.
And you want somebody to fall in love with kind of an idea and a vision. Like in our daily work, that is always the kind of the turning point, when somebody comes with very fixed ideas of their own that maybe we question or we think they're not the right approach. The way to counter that is to propose an alternative that is extremely compelling and appealing. That's how you make change. That's how you get the project forward. So we might have a client who comes and they insist on having, a certain type of window expression. We bring a different alternative, and they never imagined that this could be like that, and suddenly it's a green light. if you aren't doing that, then it's a battle or it doesn't happen, So it's a bit the same way. And I think Zoe really understood that, this idea of capturing the imagination of the public. And there was a very specific request, as Larry said, for a lot of images, big images, but inside and out, and
so you can get a visual
and looking at the whole thing holistically, like on a block wide level. Right. So many of these studies, unfortunately, due to realities of funding, time constraints, look at just an individual kind of proposal typology
for individual site,
an individual site. And if you were to visualize the kind of EHON major street 6-story massing deployed along an entire street on a major street, it's not really that great. You have these side yard setbacks, a lot of wasted space, a front yard that's way too large to do anything, and a backyard that's way too small to do anything, narrow units. I don't think that's how people want to live. I think you're being forced into this because there's no other choices. So,
we also thought looking at the kind of block scale for this project was an opportunity to question some of the municipal servicing, like garbage, also just requirements for, bike rooms and trash rooms, amenity space, things like that, which are all kind of, each building has a requirement to provide their own facilities for all this. Our idea was to take that out of the buildings and put it more within the public realm. Mm-hmm. So have, for instance, block wide.
Garbage collection, like centralized.
Centralized garbage. Okay, I should edit this part. Yeah. To have centralized garbage collection on each streets, rather than have a trash room in each building, to kind of free up more space for living within the buildings themselves.
Like bike parking in Europe, it's a mix of bike parking in the courtyard in front of the building. Then if you have a $2,000 or $3,000 carbon fiber bike, they bring it into the apartment, or there's a locker in the basement, so it's the city just is forcing extremely specific prescriptive requirements on smaller projects and not allowing them to almost meet a more like performance based, it's like you need to have this many bike parking spots, but you can maybe decide where, and then it's so prescriptive, like visitor and non-visitor and all of, it's just meeting quotas, meeting numbers, and it puts a lot of pressure on these small, quite fragile buildings that are not large buildings that can't absorb. Not to mention about pad mount transformers and things like that. I mean,
so a question for you that we didn't actually really, I didn't get into, but I will ask now. The most of the projects that you have, from my understanding, are residential projects. Mm-hmm. Do you look at other typologies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and we were working on a commercial project that was rather large scale. Okay. Unfortunately, because the economy, the office market is terrible, so that went on hold. But we're again, because our experience is in large projects in a kind of variety of cultural, programs. We really have wide ranging interests, and as a practice, I always joke I'd like to do one of everything. So
what's the next one you want to do?
Well, we'd love to do and that's part of the issue, which I don't think we'll have the time to get into. But let's say we'd love to do a school, but good luck doing a school here as a young practice. It's impossible. It's not part of the procurement strategy. You can never, ever get through the RFP process. So we pursue.
You don't know who's listening.
Well, that's another thing on the side that we're
private schools exist. Right.
It's true. But, in Switzerland, for example, all schools are, mostly awarded through competition that are anonymous. So we pursue work in Switzerland and in Europe in general. And, I think we live in a very challenging place for small, young offices.
Yes, Toronto specifically.
And I would say single family residential, small multi-unit and some commercial is kind of
the allotment of
what you're given,
what you can win,
what you're given. Yeah. And then the rest is like good luck and see you in 40 years,
Right. Okay. Well, look, we have covered a ton, which has been pretty amazing. It's kind of weird to when you get to the point near the end of this where you're like, okay, so we've summarized your life.
Yeah.
What do you like to do as a part of your life now for enjoyment and fulfillment that is not associated with architectural design? What are some of your hobbies? What are some of the things that you like to pursue?
We had hobbies. Now we just have children. So, yes.
We love to cook and to travel
Yeah.
and to
Yeah, traveling we're not doing quite as much as we used to, but cooking still, yes,
I
regular
did put it out
occurrence.
there. You don't know, maybe someone's going to call and say, yeah, you know what? We're going to fly out to go see that museum.
Oh, yes, that would be
for
fantastic.
sure. Yeah, I think it's...
Are there any places, I'm interrupting, are there any places that are high on your list of on travel?
Part of the thing is we've been extremely fortunate to travel a lot already, and so although we're eager to do it again, and we have been doing it also with our kids, but it's not the same.
Of course.
We don't have this I would say this urgency for it, as if we hadn't done as much traveling as we had, especially when we were living in Asia and Europe. We were all over the place.
Every 3 or 4 months, we take a 4-day trip somewhere new.
Right.
So that was 6 years of travel in Asia and Europe. So now we don't feel like we're missing out on anything necessarily, and we're just kind of trying to keep our lives as simple and easy as possible.
Yeah, I think most of our focus is on our kids and on our practice.
Yeah.
And that those two things are really like a full-time
Two
job.
full-time jobs. Yeah.
And the rest is just kind of it comes and goes. So
okay. Well, I got to tell you, I appreciate you taking time to do this. It was a pleasure to meet you on Friday, and I'm thrilled that we were able to set this up in advance of that and be able to share.
Yeah.
When we met, to be able to do this. I've learned a lot. I honestly can't believe how much you've traveled and what experiences you've had that have led you to where you are now professionally. And then you've been able to share a lot of that together is, I think, an incredible unifying trait that not many couples get to share. So,
For sure, yeah.
I appreciate you opening up about it all.
our pleasure.
Thanks so much for having us here.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thanks for joining.